I've seen it happen way too often. You spot a cheap sewing machine on a sale, you think you're getting a steal, you bring it home, and a few weeks later you're frustrated because the tension is all over the place, the needle skips on thicker fabrics, and you end up spending more on fixes than the original price. That hesitation is real, especially if you're planning to take on anything beyond a simple hem. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Janome MC6650 lands in the middle of that decision-making crossroad, promising the kind of flexibility that hobbyists and semi-professional quilters crave. But does it actually deliver a smarter by compared with those budget bin options? First off, the biggest fear when you're eyeing a new machine is the learning curve. A lot of entry-level models come with a handful of stitches and a basic feed system that can make quilting a chore rather than a joy. The MC6650, however, is built around an electronic drive that gives you consistent power without the need to constantly adjust foot pressure. In practice, that means if you set it up for a 40-inch quilt block, the machine can keep the fabric moving at a steady pace, letting you focus on pattern placement instead of fighting the machine to stay in sync. For someone who's already comfortable threading a needle but still learning the nuances of piecing and quilting, that steadiness can shave hours off a weekend project. One of the more subtle strengths of this Janome model is the way it handles different layers. I've watched a few friends tackle a layered baby blanket, a cotton top, fleece middle, and flannel back, and the MC6650 kept the feed rollers smooth enough that the layers didn't bunch up. That's a practical win because many machines will either pull the top fabric too fast or let the backing lag, resulting in puckering. The electronic drive's ability to adapt to varying thicknesses isn't something you'll find on the cheapest machines that rely on a simple motor and manual tension knobs. Now, let's talk about the bonus bundle that comes with it. It isn't just a handful of extra presser feet. You actually get a quilting hoop, a set of specialty needles, and a tote that's roomy enough for a few fabric bundles. For someone just stepping into quilting, those extras can be the difference between buying 3 separate accessories at full price or getting a ready-to-go kit. In real-world use, that means you can unpack the machine, pop the hoop on, and start stitching a patchwork quilt the same day you unbox it. It eliminates the "I have a machine, but I'm missing this foot" pause that often stalls new projects. Who should consider this machine? If you're a sew and quilt hobbyist who already knows how to thread a bobbin, can change needles, and has a basic idea of stitch selection, the MC6650 offers enough electronic control to make those tasks smoother without overwhelming you with a sea of options. It's also a solid pick for small business makers who need to produce a steady stream of finished garments or home decor items. The consistency of the feed system means fewer rejected seams and less time spent rethreading. On the flip side, if you're a complete beginner who's never even touched a sewing needle, the machine's electronic interface could feel a bit more complex than a purely mechanical model that only has a dial and a few buttons. Likewise, if you're looking for a heavy-duty industrial machine that can handle leather or multiple layers of denim for a full-time production line, the MC6650's power source and feed mechanism are designed for home studio use, not an industrial environment. In terms of weaknesses, the biggest trade-off you'll notice is size. The MC6650 isn't a tabletop mini. It sits on a sturdy base and needs a dedicated space of at least 1.5 feet in width. If you live in a cramped apartment and only have a fold-out table, you might find the footprint a little demanding. Another practical point is noise. While it's quieter than a vintage mechanical machine, the electronic motor does produce a hum that you'll hear in a quiet room. It's not a deal breaker, but if you're stitching late at night and need near silence, you might want to consider a machine that advertises whisper quiet operation. One feature that often trips people up is the stitch selection layout. The MC6650 groups stitches by category rather than numbering them sequentially, which can be confusing if you're used to a numeric system. The learning curve here is more about familiarizing yourself with the screen menu, not the actual stitching. Once you spend a few minutes scrolling through the options, you'll notice the machine includes utility stitches useful for buttonholes, decorative edging, and basic quilting patterns. Those are the kinds of stitches you'll actually use in everyday projects, not just a handful of novelty designs that sit unused on the screen. Let's bring it back to the bottom line value. The 4.8-star rating tells us that owners are largely satisfied, and that's reinforced by the fact that